How's it going, YouTube? My name is Ninja7, and welcome in today's video where we're going to be taking a look at the data collected by Champs and Roby Doby. I hope I'm saying that correctly. But this is beta raid healing. So as you know, in the World War Within, the beta, we were allowed to test some of the raid bosses. Only a few of them, I believe 5 of them we were able to test. So we're going to be taking a look at this data, but I do want to do a massive disclaimer. Hopefully no one skipped through this video already. This is still in the beta. We are early in the beta. This data is not final. This is not going to be the ranking of the healers once the game comes out. Things will change. They absolutely will. So don't put any stock into the actual throughput of the healers. Instead, we're going to be branching out because what I think is more important from this video is to see what builds people are currently running and trying out and having success with in the beta. We're also going to take a look at some of the nerfs that have already hit the game on some of the healers. Let's just dive into things. And the first thing that we're going to look at is, once again, I said don't put too much stock into this. That's why I'm getting it out of the way at the beginning of the video. But I want you to notice as I click through these bosses, look at the top 4 healers, and then more importantly, look at the bottom 3 healers. So yeah, you probably already noticed that the bottom 3 are the 2 priest specs and the RDruid spec throughout every boss fight. It does not change. The top 4 don't go unchanged. They shift positions often, but it's just that way. There's a top 4, a bottom 3, very clearly defined. Once again, we have plenty of time before the War Within comes out. It's just at the current moment, it looks like these 3 specs at the bottom might need a little bit of help. I do also want to kind of point out a flaw in this thinking or just looking at the spreadsheet in general. This is sorted, like this percentile is sorted based off of the 90th percentile. And you'll look at some of these logs, like just this one, for example, the Nth log, and you'll notice that this player is almost like solo healing. Like his friends aren't really helping him out a ton. It's basically him and the Mistweaver and probably like a 20-man environment. So let's go back to that spreadsheet though. Once again, not a ton to draw from, but what we're going to be doing for the most part today is looking at some of these logs and trying to determine what build, or at least the hero talent tree and the general idea of the build that they're running. So let's start things off with whatever's first, RDruid. So as I said, the RDruids are currently toward the bottom. That will change, I promise you. RDruids usually scale very well once patches come out. But you see they're still running a build pretty similar to the build that they are currently running in Dragonflight, centered around Grove Guardians, which makes sense because those guys crank healing, and one of their hero talent trees does play around Grove Guardians. So when I asked myself, okay, so are they going that talent tree or that hero talent tree that plays around Grove Guardians? And you can find an answer here when you see that one of the healing sources is Dream Bloom. So we come over here to the hero talent trees page, and you can see Dream Bloom is from Dream Surge, this talent tree keeper of the Grove, and this is the one that plays heavily around their treants, and it buffs things like regrowth, wild growth. It just buffs their healing. It's a good healing hero talent tree, so it makes sense that this is the one that they're running. But as you see here, still a very similar playstyle that RDruids have seen throughout the, all of time. Just spam rejuve, press wild growth after big damage or on cooldown, cast regrowth once you have high stacks of rejuve. Make sure and put them on yourself because of your hero talent tree. It makes you, absorb more damage. Swift mend often to apply. There's one healing buff that is applied from your swift mend. It might even be Dream Bloom, but very generic RDruid build. I don't think there's anything out of the ordinary or anything special about the build that they're going. So let's hop on over to the next one. We're going to make this video very quick because, once again, it's very hard to draw conclusions from this data. We're just going to find out what we can from it, and that's why I'm trying to keep you guys refreshed, keep you guys caught up on where your spec might be landing, even if it is just the beta, just to keep you guys on the same page. Okay, so now we move on to Holy Priest. And right off the bat, the first thing that I noticed was that Halo is the second healing source. And it's by a lot. It is by a lot. With 6 casts of Halo, this much healing is insane. So that tells me that they are rocking with the Archon build. So let's scroll down to Priest. Archon. It buffs your Halo. Your Halo now shoots out 3 times and it returns. So when they pressed it 6 times, they're basically getting 36 applications of Halo to each person it passes through. So massive AoE raid healing. This is uncapped, but I believe it's soft capped. So I believe Halo heals less per target depending on how many targets you hit. So if you hit a whole raid, it's going to heal less per each person. But yeah, it still just does crazy healing, especially when it hits everyone. So that's the build that Halo or Holy Priest is running, the Halo Archon build. But you'll notice they are still back to pressing Circle of Healing, which before there was a short time in Dragonflight where they were just spamming their single target healing buttons. But since this hero talent tree also buffs your Circle of Healing, it does make it more enticing to press, which just, in my opinion, it just makes sense to press AoE healing spells and get more value out of them in a raiding environment than single target healing spells. Like spamming Flash Heal around is cool, it's fun, but it just doesn't make sense. Pressing your AoE heal spells does, in my opinion. So outside of that, nothing super notable. You can see they're still running Divine Image, which kind of makes sense. It's a really strong talent. But other than that, pretty standard, just pressing Halo often makes sense. But once again, these specs are toward the bottom of the tree. Holy Priest does kind of land middle of the pack. I'm pretty sure they don't ever hit the bottom spot. So honestly, Halo is kind of carrying, which depending on who you ask, that could be a good or a bad thing. Personally, I'm fine with one button if it's really cool to carry, but Halo, although it would be fun a couple times, I don't think it could be cool enough to carry you through an entire expansion. I would like to see some of these other healing sources brought up a bit so that you're not just pressing one button and it doing over 15% of your healing. I would like to see some of these other sources brought up. That's just my opinion. But let's move on over to Discipline Priest. Right off the bat, yes, it makes sense. Atonement would be a large chunk of their healing. But man, over 50% from Atonement. I guess, look, that is what you're building around as a Disc Priest. But this is just crazy. And right off the bat, nothing sticks out to me in terms of their healing sources to tell me anything about the build that they're going. But once you look at their damage done, you can get some more answers. So once the damage done pops up, you see Penance is still carrying in the damage department. They do those big ramps and Penance. They cash in on a maxed out Penance. It does so much damage. They get so much Atonement healing from it. I'm sure you can see the Penance healing damage is going to line up with all of their damage. Yeah, you can see exactly where they press it. But let's look at their overall damage. And yeah, like I said, we can get some answers about their hero talent tree, something about the talent build that they're running from their damage sources. They have Entropic Rift, Collapsing Void, more importantly, Void Blast. But all of these damage sources do tell us what talent build or what hero talent build they're running. They're running Void Weaver because you see here Void Blast is from the Void Weaver talent tree, and all those like rift things come from this talent tree. So this tells you that Void Weaver is outperforming Oracle by a bit. Honestly, Oracle since it's the one that's shared by Disc and Holy, the two healing specs, it's kind of sad or disappointing that it didn't make it to be the best performing hero talent tree for either healers. To me, that just does not make sense. So I would love to see some buffs come to Oracle. I think a lot of people would like to see that. But that is what we can tell from this data given to us for Disc Priest. But I do want to point out that you do see Ultimate Penitence. That is the big cooldown that came from their rework. And it's nice to see that they're actually taking this talent. So whoever this player was, Joe Sandwich, he did take Ultimate Penitence. Let's see its healing. It itself did not do that much healing, but it does a lot of damage, which then leads to more Atonement healing. So that's very interesting to me that they're actually taking Ultimate Penitence. Good to know. All right, now let's move on to Shaman. You guys know I am very excited about Shaman. I actually did some testing, some raid testing. I took one of the days to do Mistweaver, one of the days to do Resto Shaman, and I'll kind of swap between them throughout the bosses. But yeah, Shaman is looking to be pretty good actually, but very middle of the pack. It's not going to top the charts like Paladin and Mistweaver do. They flip-flop at the top. for most bosses currently. But once again, we'll get into the nerfs that are going to knock one of these specs down a peg. But Shaman is pretty solid. However, as we've seen throughout Dragonflight, you need Shaman to be better than solid in order for them to make a splash in the meta. But let's look at that log to try to determine something about their build. So right off the bat, the top healing source being Chain Heal tells me that they are taking Tidebringer, you know, all the Chain Heal buffing talents. However, one thing that is catching me off guard is seeing Healing Stream Totem. I actually thought that Cloudburst Totem would be the totem go-to totem for raid healing, but no, actually seeing Healing Stream Totem make a splash, no pun intended, that does shock me. However, if we're trying to determine which hero talent tree they were running, you get your answer, well, you should get your answer from these two top healing sources. But you see down here, Surging Totem shows us that they are going Totemic Shaman. So we look at Totemic Shaman, it replaces Healing Rain. Now this totem is going to be casting your Healing Rain for you. The AI is very weird. Sometimes it just misses everyone. Sometimes it puts it in a good spot. But we can see on that log here, the Healing Rain healing is very low. And for basically all of Totemic Shaman to be built around Healing Rain and I guess Healing Stream Totem and Chain Heal, to see Healing Stream Totem and Chain Heal be at like way at the top of their healing sources, but to see Healing Rain so low, I would really think that they need to take a look at Totemic Shaman's Healing Rain at Surging Totem and fix how it places the Healing Rain, because it felt horrible in my testing. The whole raid would be stacked here. One person would be off in Narnia and it would cast Healing Rain on that person. It's like, come on, what are you doing? So Totemic Shaman was the outperformer over Farseer, which makes sense. It does seem like it's going to be a little bit better in a raid environment. But like I said, Surging Totem does look to be disappointing, and in my personal testing, it was. Let's see, anything else out of the ordinary that catches me off guard that would tell us something about their raid healing? It does look like they are still running Primordial Wave, which a lot of people are probably upset about. But if you look at their Healing Wave healing, it just does so much healing. Like, it really just packs a punch whenever you press this button. So outside of that, not much else to be gathered. Now let's move on to Holy Paladin. And I believe this guy's French, so I'm going to hopefully just rely on icons and my few years of French in high school. But I think, okay, never mind. We can hover over this. But Holy Paladin, like I said, was at the top, battling with Mistweaver and in some cases Resto Shaman for the top slot. And look at this. It is consistently at the top. Like, look at how many logs were logged at the top for Holy Paladin. You see here it's all Mistweaver, but on every other fight it's basically all Holy Paladin. And part of that is because of something that did get nerfed, which once again we will go over that in a second. But let's take a look. So right off the bat, Holy Shock is still just cranking healing. It's just a good healing source. It snipes healing, so it makes sense that it would be at the top. But Eternal Flame tells us right off the bat which hero talent tree they took or they're opting to take. And that is their Laser Beam one. Let's find out what that's called. So the Laser Beam Paladin, Herald of the Sun. It replaces their Spender Word of Glory with Eternal Flame, which basically is like a regrowth. It does do a shock heal, but it also leaves a hot behind on that target. So instead of doing all the healing up front, it does a little bit more healing, but it spreads it out over time, which is just a great healing profile for a button in a raid environment. Because if you Word of Glory someone and it overheals, you just lose out on that overhealing. But if you Eternal Flame someone and it heals them to full and overheals a bit, you're less punished for that overhealing, and the hot will then make up more healing over time to rot damage. So it's just a good profile for a raid environment. But outside of that, the majority of the draw to this playstyle is Dawnlight, and how you're going to be putting you're going to be shooting laser beams between you and anyone with Dawnlight whenever you pop your wings. So if you don't know, go watch my laser beam video now. It's sick, but you basically shoot laser beams between you and anyone that you're able to put Dawnlight on. Dawnlight is a buff that heals as well. The laser beams heal anyone that you shoot through in a raid environment. you can tell everyone to stack up, and you can line it up to where all of your laser beams are shot through your entire raid. And it does insane healing, as you see from these meters here. It does crazy healing. 1.25 million HPS is wild for almost a 400-second fight. But let's pull up that log again. And yeah, it's even confirmed when you see Sun's avatar as their fourth healing source. This is the laser beams that shoot through people, doing 11% of the overall healing. Now, I do want to kind of compare this. We're going to go ahead and look at the Mistweaver log. But I want to compare this to Conduit of the Celestials, which, spoiler alert, they use the Conduit of Celestials hero talent tree. So Celestial Conduit, it did about 2% of this Mistweaver, which is Vor, by the way. Shout out to Vor. They're insane at the game. But it did about 2% with 3 casts. This is their new cooldown that comes with Conduit of the Celestials. This is about where they want these new buttons to be balanced, if you were to ask me. Yes, you see some other Mistweaver healing sources being very high up, like Strength of the Black Ox, the shield that you're putting on people whenever you get Zwin to proc, and then you cast an Enveloping Mist. It adds up to about 5% of your overall healing. But the new buttons, the new flashy things, they don't want them to be overpowered, because then if you swap to the other hero talent tree, you're basically playing that stripped down spec without the button. So what I'm trying to say is, let's go back to the Paladin log. You see just how much healing Sun's avatar is doing for them. Now imagine if they swap to the other hero talent tree, what's it called, like Lightsmith? Yeah, if they swap to Lightsmith, now you're just playing Holy Paladin without Sun's avatar, without that 11% of your healing, and you would need that 11% to be made up in your hero talent trees. I don't think they want hero talent trees to be that strong. But outside of that, the build looks very similar to what they're running currently, just Holy Shock. They are notably, once again, running Eternal Flame, and they're spending on Eternal Flame instead of pressing Light of Dawn. I don't even think Light of Dawn is on here. It is not. It is not on here. So 0 casts of Light of Dawn, which is very important to point out, because one of these talent trees buffs your Light of Dawn healing. Like this talent tree, Herald of the Sun, the one that this player was running, buffs your Light of Dawn, your AoE spender, yet they're still not pressing it in raid. It's just like, dude, what is going on in Holy Paladin? At least one of their spenders is very strong now, or at least it appears to be very strong in Eternal Flame. But man, it's literally a head scratcher. I'm actually scratching my head at why they're still not pressing Light of Dawn. That's just a balancing issue for sure there. But outside of that, I still don't think there's enough more to talk about in Holy Paladin world until we get to the nerfs. But let's look at Mistweaver, the one that most of you guys are probably watching to hear about. This build is the one that I've been talking about, so I'm glad to see that I'm not crazy and that this was the correct build. I did get some testing in it, on it, but it's very hard. You need a lot of haste, it felt like, to make it really pack a punch. But other than that, I was doing pretty good healing, above average healing in my raid testing, but nothing exceptional, nothing like these crazy Mistweaver logs that you see. Where's the big one? I think it's this one. Yeah, I didn't do above 1 million HPS except for like 1 or 2 pools. Let's get back to the log. So what build am I talking about? Well, first things first, you notice we're still running Yu'lon. A lot of people really want us to hop back on the Chi-Ji train, but Yu'lon, once you see some of these talents that are coming in the War Within, they really lean you toward a Yu'lon playstyle, even though they're trying to, weave us into Rising Sunkick more. Which, spoiler alert, we are casting Rising Sunkick again. You look at these healing sources, you see Rising Mist actually makes an appearance, meaning that we are no longer running Tear of Mourning. Instead, we're running Rising Mist. This is simply because we now have a talent that makes our Renewing Mist, instead of being a 20-second hot, it's now a 22-second hot, meaning that Rising Mist can extend it further from 40 seconds in the past. Now it can be extended to a 44-second hot, which means that we're going to have more Renewing Mist out than normal. However, there's also another talent that gives our Renewing Mist 3 charges, and anytime that we cast Renewing Mist, we're shaving a second off of our Rising Sun Kick timer, and then anytime that we cast Rising Sun Kick, we're shaving a second off of our Renewing Mist timer. So you can really weave in those Renewing Mists. You can cast Renewing Mist, Renewing Mist, Renewing Mist, Rising Sun Kick, Renewing Mist, Renewing Mist, Renewing Mist. So you can just like spam Renewing Mists and Rising Sun Kicks and extend your HOTS very consistently, and get very strong Vivify healing off of that. Very notably, also, the new passive reworked Zen Pulse is also cranking healing, because once again, this procs on everyone with a Renewing Mist, and the more Renewing Mist that you have out there, the more likely you are to get this to proc. So it still says 30-second cooldown. I don't know why it says that, but you're just seeing a lot of procs from Zen Pulse. Your Vivifies are hitting more targets, and you're just getting a lot. Like, look at this Renewing Mist healing. That is a lot of healing from this small hot. So this build makes a lot of sense. They're also, by the way, they're running Conduit of the Celestials. I'll go ahead and show it, but it's basically for, there's one very powerful thing in Conduit of the Celestials that carries. I don't know the alphabet, apparently, but okay, Conduit of the Celestials. So whenever you get this to proc, so by casting either Tiger Palm or Vivify for Mistweavers, this procs off Vivify, Zwin will come out and swipe your target. So the boss, it'll come out and swipe and heal someone nearby. It does a small amount of healing. Let's see, we can find it on the healing sources here. Courage of the White Tiger. However, the very important part about this is after Zwin procs, you'll get Nejao to proc. And if you cast an Enveloping Mist while Nejao is ready to help you out, it'll shield people around you. And this shield adds up. I mean, I think it's like capped at 5 people. Yeah, shield to 5 nearby allies. But it's you're basically getting 15% of your maximum health as a shield across 5 people. It's absolutely insane. So this adds up to a lot of HPS in a raid environment. Add that to the free healing from Refreshing Jade Wind, Flight of the Red Crane, Courage of the White Tiger, and on top of all that, the very minor amount of healing that you get from Celestial Conduit. It's not exactly a cooldown. You can't pair it up for giant slamming mechanics like you can with Yu'lon, but it does a sizable amount of healing. It's not that bad. I wish it would be stronger, but it's not the worst thing ever. Let's see. One more thing that I want to point out about this build. It's got to be Gust of Mist. So I know this player, I looked at their gear, they aren't running a lot of Mastery, yet this Gust of Mist healing is a little bit better, and I wish that I could see the data to see how many of these Gust of Mist procs came from actually casting Vivify versus how many came from casting Rising Sun Kick. But yeah, Rising Sun Kick, I think I would guess they're running the talent that makes your Rising Sun kick up Gust of Mist. But once again, the whole purpose of this video is because we don't have access to that data unless we actually message these people to ask them what build they're running. But you go to the summary page, and the talent section is blurred out. You can't see it yet. But now that we've kind of talked about all the builds that every healer's running and kind of trying to see some data to gather from this spreadsheet that's very early on, we have to talk about Blizzard's reaction to this. They did nerf a few specs. They did do some slight buffs. First off, Evoker, Temporal Burst now increases haste over 30 seconds, starting with 1% up to 30%, instead of 1% to 40%, or I'm sorry, it goes from 30 to 1% instead of 1 to 40. So instead of amping up your haste buff that you get from Temporal Burst, it's going to start off strong and decay, which is a lot better. You don't want to plan 40 seconds in advance. Instead, you would want to press a button, get a giant buff, and be able to capitalize on that. So that is a massive, massive buff to Evoker. I'll be interested to see if that makes some giant changes in the healing charts. Other than that, the only really notable changes are, let's see if we can scroll down to them. No changes to Mistweaver Monk. 0 changes. So I have a feeling that they are going to continue to work on it because they've introduced a lot of very strong synergies in the War Within with Mistweaver. So I don't want to say anything, but if I had to guess, they're probably going to start working on how to tweak the numbers. I hope they don't change any of the talents and how they work right now. But as of right now, no current changes to Mistweaver. However, Paladin, I've been hinting at this throughout the video, Sun's avatar healing not only will be reduced by 40%, but the Dawnlight, the buff that's also healing that ally that you're tied to with a beam, that healing is also reduced. And on top of both of these changes, when you pop your wings button, you're not going to be tethered to 4 people for free. You're only going to be tethered to 1 person. The other 2 people you have to manually apply Dawnlight to by pressing your barrier and doing some other shenanigans. But other than that, just some minor changes. But these changes are massive. It really shows you that they do not want Holy Paladin to be at the top, I would think. But once again, just looking at throughput, it's really hard to gather some data right off the bat this early in the beta. But yeah, I mean, those are some giant nerfs, some massive nerfs to the Herald of the Sun hero talent tree. I do think that these two were definitely necessary, but this one does hurt. This one really does hurt. So I don't know. I'm much less excited to try out or to play this in the War Within now. But they also, I believe these are buffs to Lightsmith. So Sacred Weapon now deals AoE damage and healing, and then Shining Light stacks up to a maximum of 2 times. I think trying to bring Lightsmith up a little bit more in performance to kind of equal out to Herald of the Sun, giving you more of an option. Because since this is the beta and this is the testing phase, they want things to be equal so you can test them so they can balance them around each other. So that makes sense. Other than that, Holy Priest or Priest in general sees some changes. So Void Weaver, the one that Disc Priest was using, got a pretty massive nerf. So Void Blast, let's find the Disc Priest, Joe Sandwich. Void Blast got a 25% nerf. Massive nerf. And that will nerf their atonement healing by a ton. So Void Blast, this player used it quite a bit. The page is a bit buggy, but just a big nerf to this. 25% off the top. That will nerf their atonement healing, which they do not need any nerfs. You see here, they're already at or toward the bottom. So that sucks, but you can tell they're nerfing because of Shadow's performance. It just really sucks to see them nerfing something that also cleaves a nerf onto Discipline Priest right now. They also fix some issues with both healing specs, but nothing about Holy Priest, which once again, I do think they are going to change something with Holy Priest. I would hope so. Halo is cranking, but outside of that, nothing else is really exciting about Holy Priest in my opinion. So I would like to see some just sweeping changes across the board to not Archon, not Void Weaver, but what's the other one? The other priest one. See, I don't even know what it's called. The one that both the priest specs share. The alphabet is the hardest part. Oracle. I would love to see Oracle come in strong and be a contender. But outside of that, I don't believe there's any notable changes. So once again, the big change is to Paladin. Outside of that, Druid did see some changes, but not to rest of Druid. But guys, that's gonna do it for this video. Sorry, I kind of rambled on, but I hope with how many tabs I have open, I hope that I didn't ramble too much. It's very hard. I have a loose script. I have a bunch of tabs that I have in the order that I wanted to talk about them. But guys, that's gonna do it for this video. I'm gonna go drink some water, eat some food. If you like this and you want me to kind of keep you guys up to date as to where specs are currently landing in the beta, then I'll definitely keep this series going as more testing is opened up to us and as more changes come in the long run. But once again, if you've made it this far, this is not finalized data. This is not a ranking of their performance that's going to make it to the end game. This will not be where they land once the War Within comes out. This is just current, very early stage beta testing that people are doing. If you want to support this channel any further, then make sure and hit that like button on your way out and check that you're subscribed. I know a lot of people tell me, hey, I thought I was subscribed to you from the beginning, but they weren't. So make sure and check that you're subscribed, because we have so much healer content coming your way for the War Within, and I'm excited to share all that content with you, but you have to be subscribed in order to get notified for it. And finally, I want to thank the patrons of this channel because they are the reason why I'm still able to make content today. YouTube ad rates are not reliable and in the crapshoot right now in June for some reason. So it's actually the patrons that have carried this channel through that. So thank you so much if your name is on the screen. And if you want to join these guys, check out the Patreon link down in the description below. But guys, that's going to do it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, take care.